Happy Friday. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. Looking forward to the weekend, of course. This is Breon here with TRG Financial, and excited to join you all today just to talk about the world of finance. So I'm trying to brand this as Finance Fridays. You may have seen me on a few other live streams doing this on a daily basis. I got a few questions in the chat, a few things that people wanted me to react to, but I definitely wanted to just share with you all that I appreciate you joining the live. If you want to interact, send me a comment, put it in the chat. I'll see if I can read it. I think I can see if people have joined or not. And if not, I'm working on all of my details to make sure that I'm bringing you all the information that you would like to hear about as it relates to the finance world, whether that's investing, wealth management, wills, trust, all of those details that we can share with you all. I'll be streaming on whether it's Facebook, Instagram, of course, YouTube. I'm working on a TikTok page just to get you all details as you're interested in maybe information that we have to share over here at TRG Financial. So just a little information about who we are. So again, TRG Financial, we're a full service investment advisory company, state registered here in the state of Texas, branded by TRG, which is my last name, the Rollins Group. And it's more about clarity today and wealth tomorrow. So really big on our pillars being that, we want to make sure that we're tending to those assets that for people that work with us, whether you're near retirement, pre-retirement, maybe just starting to build an investment bucket. We like to be a part of those conversations, whether you're earlier in your career, late in your career, maybe just got a pool of assets, a will, a trust, a distributable event. We like to be a part of those conversations there. So while we have the Rollins Group, that T would stand for, that we want to tend to those assets right there. We also like to understand that we need to grow those assets also. So that G is a part of there would be that we want to grow. So if there's a way that we can work a part of that process where we're reclaiming those assets and we're growing those assets, all the while making sure that we're making good decisions, being a fiduciary on your behalf here at the firm. So if you get a chance, interested in any information that you see today, join us at www.trg-financial.com. You can send me an information. You can book right there on the calendar. We'd love to have a conversation with you all. But for the purposes of today's conversation, I just wanted to bring a few topics into light. So I get a lot of questions from social media now that I've been doing these, whether that's on Instagram and or Facebook. So I want to make sure that I was able to share some details or some information that I've seen. And one that I got was just recently here, a post that I kind of just want to give some information about from some information that came from a podcast interview. So we'll watch this and I'll kind of give you my impressions and a reaction to the social media content here.
So I was reading a study about Pew Research, and they define wealth as a net worth of $667,500. And they came up with this number because they said the median net worth was $167,000. So they basically 4x the median average, and they said upper tier wealth, it will be considered $667,000. And when they came up with this number, they discovered that 36% of Asian households have a net worth of at least $667,000, while 28% of white households meet that criteria, and less than 10% of black households meet that number. And when I see that number, right, it makes me think, like, is it a cultural problem, a systemic problem, or both? I'm interested to know what y'all think about it. But it also made me think, right, years ago, I interviewed the son of a billionaire black real estate developer. And he was sharing to me how they family have a 300-year legacy plan. His father had him underwriting real estate deals when he was in the 4th grade. And this is why I always say that there is no true wealth without a family structure to grow, protect, multiply, and pass it on. And anything else is really just renting a status. And when you understand this concept, right, you realize that spouses and children, they aren't optional in this equation. And getting back to the original stat that I brought up, I think too many times, and this is just my opinion, we waste too much time entertaining and discussing.
All right. So I definitely would agree that we entertain and discuss things that may not be necessary. So, but to his point, I did want to maybe break down a few of the things that he was sharing there. And, I'm going to try to go find the full podcast just to get more details, because sometimes a clip can be, one piece and it's chopped up to make sure that it has some virality. but there's definitely some things that he mentioned in there that make a lot of sense. So one, I went out and found the Pew Research study. It is true that there is some distinguishing or some disparity amongst the communities when we're talking about the wealth gap. But one thing that he didn't mention in the clip, and that's why I said I would have to go see the full video, is that we do have to make a distinction really between income and wealth. Because what happens is when people sometimes see that type of content on social media, it goes viral, a lot of people are talking about it, they don't make the distinguish. They think that he's saying, well, the average family is making 667,000 a year. They may miss that piece that talks about net worth. Okay. They may consider that it's an income thing. So he said the average net worth of individuals is around $150,000. But when you're getting to that upper income or where that upper net worth, where you would consider yourself to have wealth, that number is about 667,000. And what I really wanted to break down is really what that difference is between income versus wealth, because those are distinguishable factors. Upper income, individuals who are making six figures, upper six figures, middle six figures, that's an income thing. That's that take home amount that they're bringing home on an annual basis. But when you're talking net worth, or when you're in like the industry that I'm in, and I'm sitting down with families and having those discussions on a daily basis, we're referring to the total value of your assets. So you got to think your home, that equity that's in your home, the retirement accounts that you may have at your job, or a separate IRA, or working with individuals like myself, your savings account, dollars that you've put aside there. And then we need to subtract the debts that you would owe, those debts that would be incurring here, details that you owe back into that. And then we have a true net worth answer. So when he's talking about that larger number of 667,000, I wanted to make sure that people were able to anchor in. That's not necessarily what someone's taking home on an annual basis. That's a culmination of all the details that they have, whether it be a house, a couple paid off things that are considered assets, maybe a part of a business that they're included in, some savings accounts, some retirement accounts, maybe some TRS assets. All of those can be pulled in, and that can be considered a part of your net worth minus those debts. Now, that median gap that he mentioned, I think he may have used the word average, but I'd have to go back and look at that. That median gap being 667,000, yeah, that could be the entry point for that upper tier. So that's talking about, you've just now started to hit that upper tier according to Pew Research. And there's a lot of different studies out there that would say different numbers may be an entry point. There's Schwab does a modern wealth survey every year. Milliman does studies based on that. Callan does studies. There's How America Saves by Vanguard. There's plenty of places that try to gather information that, one, support the industry that I am, but also help individuals as they're trying to benchmark themselves amongst others as it relates to where they are in their wealth journey based on age, career, location that they live in, etc. So that entry point might be roughly about 667,000. But if you really getting into that upper tier, you might be closer to 800,000, almost $1 million. And again, we're talking about net worth, not take home pay. Now, public perception would say, man, you've got a net worth of $1 million. You're really rich. You're really wealthy. And it is true. You've got assets. You probably have some flexibility in your lifestyle. You're able to make decisions that other people maybe in a lower income or a lower net worth status would not be able to do. But even if you look at it, some Americans, as you go out and review data and look at details, if you went out and asked the people on the street, some people may feel like $1 million is not enough. They may have 1, 2, 3 kids that need to go off to college. They may have a mortgage. They may have details. They may feel like $1 million is not enough. And some studies would say if you went and talked to the average American who has understood financial situations, their situation, what's happening in the market, et cetera, they may say upwards of about 2.5 million is what you would need to be considered truly wealthy. And again, that's culmination of all assets. So don't think that you need to be making 2.5 million a year as that being a part of your journey. But they do bring up a good topic about why. So one deep dive that he somewhat got into, and I won't spend too much time on that today, he got in just the difference between communities. Well, one community, you'd say 20% of that community is meeting that threshold. Another, it may be 30%. But specifically to African Americans, one community that I definitely serve, that number is much, much lower. And he said, why? Is it because we're not being educated? He specifically brought up a real estate developer. I've had conversations with real estate developers as well, specifically one in Atlanta, the Russell family, where they do have a legacy plan. It is not just for the first generation. It's not just for the second generation. It's for generations thereafter. And what typically happens when one person in the family, so for example, gets wealthy, sometimes in our communities, they may be responsible to take care of all the other individuals in the family, which one can diminish the wealth, and two, lessen that likelihood to be able to pass that on to next generations. Maybe it could be an education piece. It could be, hey, I'm supporting my family, so those assets have been left. And there's a few examples that I wanted to give there. I think you may have all seen Sebastian Telfair recently was on a podcast talking about, man, $20 million was not enough. But when you dug into the details, I would say $20 million is enough. Any of you right now that would like to give me $20 million personally, for me, I'm going to take it and I will be fine. But what I would say, he mentioned some of his family dynamics, some of his background, some of the education maybe that he lacked as it related to how to manage those dollars and make sure that it lasts from what happened in his NBA career to the next generation. There are some studies that would say that as wealth is generated by that second, third generation, it may have diminished from that family if there isn't structure and details set up to make sure that it is passed on to the next. If there isn't rules, if there isn't family governance that's in the place, and that's probably the education that we lack. A lot of people make a lot of money. Entrepreneurs make a lot of money. I work with creatives, they make a lot of money. Sometimes that money goes in one hand and then right out the other. Because what happens is there may not be a plan or a strategy to make sure that that money does go to the next generation. Because what happens, especially in the world of like entertainment, athletics, etc., you make it one time and you're always assuming you're going to be able to make it again. You get that one big check and then you think, oh, well, the next big check is right around the corner. And that's not always the case. So you have to plan, have that emergency savings, have details in place in the event that that next check doesn't come. And if it does come, now we're able to back in and even do more things to make sure that that legacy, that wealth is passed on to the next generation. So great clip there. I just want to spend a little time talking about the big distinction that you want to make sure is that when you're looking at social media content like that, you want to make sure you understand some of those terms. There is a difference between income. There's a difference between net worth. There's a difference if you're talking about business between profit loss and burn rate. Entrepreneurs, business owners, as they sit down and look at it, yeah, you may see someone who's doing great things in business, but they could very well be cash poor. Mr. Beast had a conversation. Now, some of it I need to look at Mr. Beast's books, but he said, hey, man, people think that I'm really, really rich right now, but I'm in debt. Everything that I'm doing right now, hey, I have to take out a loan. That loan is going to be paid off with the assets that I build over the time while I'm building this franchise. You got to consider someone like Mr. Beast. Yeah, he's got an incredible platform, but he's also launched the Feastables brand. He's also got Amazon Prime shows. He's also been on NBC. He also still has his YouTube channel, and all of that cost. So instead of outlaying that money personally out of his pocket, he's definitely incurring some debt. So, at one of these days, we'll have a conversation around what's good debt, maybe things that businesses, organizations do to propel themselves, ramp up, versus things that may, tug you down a little bit as you're growing your operation. So first thing, I just wanted to react there just to give you some context on how we see the world, how we look at it when we're talking with individuals. Definitely understanding the difference between, hey, this is the income that I bring in, but this is my net worth. This is what I'm worth overall after we take out all of my assets and then take out that piece that we owe in debt. This is where we kind of stand. And I encourage everyone, if you haven't done that, some back of the table math can help you. But there's also tools and resources, individuals like myself that love to do that work and would love to have a conversation with you there. So the next thing I wanted to talk to was more social media content. And this was just here more recently. And I'm going to preface this before we show it. Keep in mind when you see stuff like this, this is two wealthy people, what we would assume, NFL player, Crowder, world champion boxer, Terrence Crawford, having a conversation amongst themselves. So some of the values and some of the ways that they may interact with each other will be different than some of the common public. But I do want to kind of react to this for a second, have a conversation. I have one other question that someone asked me in the chat that I want to talk about before we wrap today's conversation. So let's play this real quick.
That can get you back in that ring. 80 million, 100 million.
Nah, because now you selling your soul.
$100 million, you can have my soul.
That's you. Now we know your character.
Now, I've seen a lot of reactions to this video. I have. And yes, money can be the root of all evil, and it can at times show people's character. For the love of money, there's all kinds of things that would make you think, hey, to be a billionaire, you got to step over a lot of people. You would hear so many different things about how money is going to, maybe have people do things that they shouldn't do to get it. And, you're talking an enormous amount of money there, $100 million to step back into the ring. Now, I would be interested. Again, I can't talk about anyone's value system, but I'll be interested to hear Terrence Crawford's answer to that on his second fight. Now, keep in mind, this is a world champion, has undefeated, has never lost a fight. I don't know the numbers exactly, but I'm sure his most recent fight where he was victorious over Canelo, he probably got north of $25-50 million. That's a major platform. Over 50, maybe 100 million people saw that fight. The replay value, sponsorship dollars, live gate ticketing, etc. So his frame of reference as it relates to the 100 million, and we're not going to get into the soul piece because everyone has a different value system. I would not sell my soul for $100 million. So I'll level it there. But I would say that question or that line of questioning becomes completely different when you're already further along in your wealth journey versus people who are just starting out. Because there is a such thing as starving artists and starving athletes who will do anything for a break. But that's why planning and understanding where you're going is important. So what I get out of that clip is not that Crowder is really got bad character or not a good person. I think he was just trying to engage for the content. So people take things out of context. This is already a wealthy man. He's already done great things on the football field. Salute to him. He's now in the content space. The Pivot is a great podcast. He just ended up maybe asking a question in a way that made it believe that looked like he would maybe break his morals to get money. And I'm not sure that that's where he was going. But I would relate to, for people who are just starting out, it sounds like Terrence Crawford has been a good steward of his money. That's what it feels like to me. He's probably had good people in his corner, good people who have made sure that he was educated or he's educated himself and made sure that he wouldn't be in a position where he had to have scarcity to be like, man, I have to go jump back in the ring. I've got to go take this crazy fight. I've got to be concerned about dementia and all the things that some of our greatest athletes had to deal with after they've completed a contact sport like that. So it sounds like he set him up appropriately. So again, that's a conversation that I want to go watch in its totality, because what would have been a great pivot would be, hey, well, let me tell you why I don't need to go fight again for $100 million. That's an enormous sum of money. That would be great. But hey, Channing, what I've done is I've set up my lifestyle and I've been modest and I've saved money and I've built in systems and I've been working with a team that made sure that I wouldn't have to do that. So the dollars that I've made in boxing, not only are they going to be able to support me, they'll be able to support the next generation, because it's hard pressed. Many of you have never even seen that much money. None of us. I've never seen $100 million liquid, so that type of temptation can be something towards someone. But if you've set up structure and details, that will help you along when you get decision making, situations like that. So I really would have been interested to see what would have happened had that question came up on Terrence Crawford's first fight. And again, I'm gonna take the soul out of it. Just what would you have done for 100 million? There's scenarios all the time. Take this red pill, take this blue pill. How would those details might impact you? You always want to be considering, especially in the world of personal finance, people's situation. And the last thing I've got that I wanted to add today is around risk. And the question that I got in the chat, thank y'all for sending this in a DM. I got a few others, but I wanted to make sure I reacted to those. Expect to see me on these more. So keep sending me those questions. I also have the questionnaire that you can all fill out if you want me to respond to you directly. But the question that I got was around Bitcoin. Okay. And cryptocurrency in general. And I would love to pivot if I had my guy CJ, the smart guy, on right now, who to me is the, far most authority in cryptocurrency in general, specifically the asset Bitcoin. I would love to have him on this call, but they did ask me about the risk of what's happening right now. If you haven't been following the market, cryptocurrency is one of the more volatile spaces that you can be in. If you consider the stock market or domestic assets or international assets or companies that people can invest dollars in, there's, some type of understanding the history and the legacy of how the market moves, market cycles, how policy makers, how, earnings calls, all those may impact what happens on the market side. But there's not that history and not that legacy in cryptocurrency. I think Bitcoin has been around less than 20 years at this point. So there's not a lot of data that'll let you know what ebbs and flows may come from Bitcoin. And just here recently, there was a major plunge as it related. At one point, Bitcoin was over $100,000 per coin. I think right now it's sitting around 60, 65,000, maybe close to 70 at this point as it had a pullback. And what people would ask me is, hey, is this the time to buy in? You buy the dump. You buy it when, that has dropped. And I'm not here to give you any financial advice, but that's a conversation separate of a live stream. But what I would say is that cryptocurrency is not regulated the same as what you would see a stock ticker on the S&P 500 or on the NASDAQ. Cryptocurrency also doesn't allow you all the back data to understand where those dollars are going. Now, it is an asset class. It is an asset class that may be uncorrelated to the market. So it might be something you can look into, but I would encourage you to research, talk to a professional, get information about why you feel like this currency would be important for you. Because as a volatile asset, the thing that I always want to make sure that I'm giving information on is that you want to make sure that if you understand your level of risk, that may be one of the more risky assets that you can find yourself into. One day you could be up 25%, the next day you can be down 40. And that's not a comfortable feeling for a lot of people. So I like to give risk questionnaires, risk surveys to people to see how they feel. And I'm gonna close out the live stream on this. So those of you who are on Instagram or on YouTube or on Facebook, if you see this, I'd love for you to put your answer in the chat, because I do have a question for you right now, just to see how you may look at risk. So my question would be, if I gave you $1,000 today, all right, I'm just going to give you this money. You have no responsibility with this $1,000. All right. You've got two options. Okay. Your first option would be, if I give you this 1,000, you can have the 50% chance to make another $1,000 or a 50% chance to lose it all. Okay. So you've already got the 1,000. It's banked, but you got to pick one of these options. So the first option you got to pick is, you've got a 50% chance to get $1,000 additional. So now you'll have two, but in that same flip of the coin, you could lose it all. Or would you take option B, where I'm going to give you an additional guaranteed $250 with no option of loss? So again, answer me in the chat if you've heard this. Those of you who answer, there may be something for you at the end of this. So option A, remember, I gave you $1,000. That's yours. Okay. But you have to pick, to get this 1,000, one of these two options. All right. Option A would be, you got a 50% chance to get an additional 1,000, or a 50% chance to lose it all. Or option B being, you've got a 100% chance to get $250 additional dollars with no loss. All right. This is Breon with TRG Financial. I appreciate you all joining the live. If you have any questions or any details, shoot me a DM. I'll be looking forward to some of your answers down in the comments or in the chat. And expect to see me again for your next Finance Fridays. I'll be back on a live stream on Monday. So we look forward to talking to you all soon. Thanks again for joining. Bye.